Welcome to Our Own Voice, a partnership in mental health awareness in cooperation with NAMI Wichita and KSUN Community Radio. NAMI is the National Alliance on Mental Illness. We are the largest grassroots advocacy network for people with mental illness and their family members, with over 800 national affiliates and 15 Kansas affiliates. Our local one is NAMI Wichita. We provide awareness, support, education, and advocacy for people affected for mental illness. Our purpose here is providing a community conversation on KSUN Radio that provides insight into what it's like to live with mental illness. Our intention and our hope is that our program will change attitudes, assumptions, stereotypes about people with mental illness and mental health conditions. My name is David Larson. I'm pleased and proud to be your host today, and I am a person with mental illness. I am in recovery for major depressive disorder. Like everyone, I struggle with the ups and downs of emotions and the challenges of being fully human, but I am doing okay, and I know I have many gifts to offer my family, my friends, and my community. It is my pleasure to introduce our guest for today, Dr. Lisa Harding.
Thank you.
Yes. Dr. Harding, or you said I can call you Lisa, right?
Yes.
Lisa, all right. Can you share with us about who you are and what led you to study and help with mental health issues and mental illness?
Well, first of all, David, I used to be an emergency room physician that now this is my second residency in psychiatry. I always wanted to be a mental health advocate, and I lost an aunt who was going to be, in my opinion, the next president of my country of birth, and we lost her to suicide. And in dealing with that and watching just in the Caribbean the stigma attached to mental illness, I packed up shop and came here to the U.S., and here I am doing my second residency. And thank you for sharing your story.
You bet. And I'm grateful that you are here. You are wonderful.
Thank you.
When did you first encounter the work of the National Alliance on Mental Illness, and the work, and what work have you done with NAMI?
Well, I was on the board of directors of NAMI GMV in Iowa for 2 years before I started back my residency here in Kansas. There, I helped organize NAMI walks. We did CIT training. We did a lot of work in reducing the amount of impact and contact of people with mental illness in the criminal justice system.
Okay. Can you give us some background as to what you have experienced in way of mental illness and how it's affected people?
Thank you for that question. I think my biggest peeve with mental illness is the stigma attached to it. The way we address patients with mental illness as opposed to other medical conditions is not the same. We have patients that have medical conditions, coronary artery disease, hypertension, hypothyroidism, so many illnesses. And we never define a patient by that. We never say, David is a hypothyroid, David is coronary artery disease. But yet, in medicine, we say David is schizophrenic, David is bipolar. We define the entire person by their mental illness.
Okay. How do we get past that stigma?
Education, David. That is it. People like yourself that openly talk about their mental illness, and people see you as a person. You share your story, and they come to recognize that there are other facets of you as a human being. You are not depression. You are a person living with an illness that is treatable. And that's my hope, that other people can see that through our advocacy work and us showing them that, hey, our patients, our friends are all people living with mental illness, and there's nothing wrong with them.
I'm so glad you said that, because I thought he was a witch.
I have friends who are witches.
Oh, really?
Yes.
You resemble that remark?
Yes. So that's called person first language, by the way.
Yes, it is.
When we realize that there is a person first who has an illness or who is dealing with something, we talk about the person being who they are, not being what they are.
Correct.
So, well, let's see here.
Don't you think we've made a lot of progress in the pretty recent years in terms of how we deal with people that have mental illness?
Yes and no. I think we've done a really good job of bringing things to light. I'm not sure about the other half of it. You know, the World Health Organization gives us data that says by the year 2020, major depressive disorder will be the leading cause of all illness, just not mental illness, just illness in general of the population.
Lisa?
So, yes.
I'm going to cut you off right there. So we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be coming back to Our Own Voice with Lisa Harding. Yes. Thank you. Welcome back to Our Own Voice, a partnership in mental health awareness in cooperation with NAMI Wichita and KSUN Community Radio. NAMI is the National Alliance on Mental Illness. And before we continue on with our second section, I want to take a moment to offer some thank yous. Thank you to our production team, to David Peterson, executive producer, and to Mike Padilla, our technical producer. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
You're welcome.
So during our break, Lisa, we were talking about all sorts of things. And one thing that you mentioned was suicide and stigma and language and how that all gets muddled together. Can you flesh that out, please?
I definitely can. This is one of the goals of my career, as I was talking this segment before. The phrase we use when somebody succumbs to mental illness by suicide is we say that that person committed suicide. The word commit gives the connotation that the person willfully, on their own volition, decided that this was going to be something that they were going to do. And there's an element of blame attached to that. We never say, David committed a heart attack.
Right.
David succumbed to his illness and died of a heart attack.
Right.
And this is the same thing with mental illness, especially suicide. The person succumbed to their illness and died by suicide.
Okay. So how can we go about changing our language so that we are not doing that?
I think media, this is a great platform for that more people, even people that report, if they change their language, then that in essence is disseminated to the population, that then they get to know, like, hey, maybe I shouldn't say this like that.
Okay. Thank you. Where do you see the field going in?
That is a really good question. And so a lot of older psychiatry, was based on, theories and thoughts. Now we actually have scientists that are mapping out parts of the brain responsible for addiction pathways. There's actual science backing up why people are addicted. There's science why you are depressed. Your neurotransmitters are low. There are actual studies out there. And so I think the field is moving towards biomarkers. I think in my lifetime, my hope is that when my patients come in, I'll be able to give them a blood test of some sort and be able to measure certain levels of, elements of their blood chemistry and be able to tailor treatment for specific patients.
Okay. I do know something I learned in one of the peer-to-peer classes that's taught through NAMI, that people who have depression tend to have less glial cells?
Yes, there are some studies that show that, but right now I think the field more focuses on the amount of neurotransmitters you have so that they know serotonin is low, and so we try to target that along with therapy to try to help the full recovery process.
And that's a great lead into another question. Should we do medicine or should we do therapy? Or should we do both?
So there is a large study that shows that you should do both. And I say this to most of my patients like this. You have hormones that make you look male, or you have hormones that make you look female. If you didn't have them, you wouldn't have the characteristic features. You wouldn't grow breasts. You wouldn't have feminine features. As a man, you wouldn't have a beard. You wouldn't have your features. And so you take hormone replacement to replace that level back to normal. It's the same thing in your brain with neurotransmitters. If your serotonin is low, we bump that serotonin up. If your problem is dopamine or norepinephrine, we get those to a level. But then what? You have been depressed, and the way you act when you're depressed is not the same when you're happy. And so you have this, and so that's the part that therapy helps with. Therapy helps you change that, we call it maladaptive behavior. So writing a prescription and running away is what I say most psychiatrists do, because the hard part is left for you. What do I do now that these levels are normal in my brain? How do I learn how to act with my new normal? And that's from therapy. So medication and therapy is actually the treatment for all mental illness.
And you offer that both?
I do. At the 1515 Clifton VCPC clinic, we offer meds and therapy, and we're actually taking new patients now.
Wonderful. Okay.
I might have a prospect for you.
Yeah. So, what are some...
David, did you hear that?
Yes,
I
I
think
did.
He wants to send you someplace new.
And that would be okay with me.
It would
be fine.
Yes.
That's one of the things that we've talked about as well, is that there seems to be a stigma associated with the med taking, and there's not quite as much of a stigma associated with therapy. So I don't know why we juggle things that way, but we do.
I do know people who look at me and have said to me, "Are you off your meds?"
And I think it comes from that stigma, because somehow it is equated to a deficit on your part.
Exactly. Yes,
That's
yes,
the
yes,
problem.
yes.
Yeah.
And so if it's a deficit, so there's something wrong with me.
Correct.
Or whatever.
Correct. And the only way we remove that stigma is by educating people. The
Yeah.
same way you take a multivitamin to replace the vitamins that are deficient in your body, this is just the same thing.
That's right. Well, we're going to take another break here. This is Our Own Voice on KSUN Community Radio. We're talking with Dr. Lisa Harding about mental illness, and we're going to take another quick break, and we'll be right back.
Got good music in the background.
Welcome back to Our Own Voice, a partnership in mental health awareness in cooperation with NAMI Wichita and KSUN Community Radio. NAMI is the National Alliance on Mental Illness. And at the break, Lisa, I told you that I wanted to talk about personal medicine. And now let me define what personal medicine is.
Sure.
Because there are other terms associated with that. Personal medicine is that action, not so much, it's not a med, it's that action that helps you function better, that helps build your confidence, your esteem, that helps build your attitude and your mood.
Correct. And if anybody's engaged in therapy, they'll know that their therapist will use the buzzword, what is your coping skill?
Right.
What is the thing that you go to make you calm? And for most patients, once that is not harmful or upsetting to their rhythm, most therapists and psychiatrists will encourage any and everything, whether it's music, a walk, whether it is praying. Everybody has the thing that soothes them, and that's their coping
and
skill.
My personal medicine that I use a lot is music.
It's mine too.
Yeah, music,
It's mine too.
and also reading.
In my car.
Oh, yes.
Really loud.
Yes. Yeah, you jam out to tunes.
Yes, I do.
All right.
Bob Marley most of the time.
Okay, that's awesome. Well, and then of course I do have another personal med, and that's chocolate.
Oh no, I don't do carbs.
Yeah, you're the smart one on that regard, but and I really shouldn't because I'm diabetic, but I love chocolate.
Well, scold you for that one.
Okay. So, David Peterson, what are some other ideas that you have?
Well, first of all, I think we need to give you credit for the intro music.
Oh, thank you.
It is lovely.
It is really
Yes,
nice.
It
Thank
is
you.
good.
And you just mentioned how music was part of your therapy, and that was very therapeutic.
It's
NAMI,
been very therapeutic for me, I have to admit.
Good.
NAMI Wichita, though, is an organization, like David has said before, is a grassroots organization. We're nonprofit, and we have many, many programs going. I think even David mentioned the peer program that he was in. And that's something that we try to have ongoing. It's not all 52 weeks of the year, obviously, but we do have classes that one starting up normally in the fall and one in the spring, and family-to-family classes, which I personally have taken and really got a lot out of those. And those, everything is at no cost, and we just want people to come, educate yourselves, and destigmatize yourself. Is one of our major goals. Our number, and I'm going to say this several times throughout the rest of the time we have, is 316-86. I'll get it right yet. 316-686-1373. 316-686-1373. And you can learn about all the programs we have. One particular program we have is on every third Tuesday of each month, we have what we call Ask a Doctor. And I know Dr. Harding, Lisa.
I have been.
Yes. And could you...
Did they ask you any hard questions?
There's no hard questions.
Really?
Really, there isn't.
I'm going to have to come next time. Come up with some sort of question.
And the thing that I learned in 5th grade, I believe it was, that the only dumb question is the question never asked.
Oh, right.
But Lisa, could you kind
I
of
think
explain
I can
your...
disprove that.
explain your experience with Ask a Doctor program.
I think that this is something that every physician in Wichita should volunteer to do for you guys. That's what I think of it. I think it's a great platform to see our patients and community members and support systems for patients living with mental illness. This is their time to come out and ask those clarifying questions. And this is our opportunity as providers to give clarification and help remove that stigma. So it was amazing. Thank you for inviting me. I hope you invite me again.
We definitely will. And the interest that it creates, I remember when you were there, there was probably 25 to 30 people there, and they were all had questions for you.
And they were engaged.
Yes,
they were
were.
engaged.
But any information you would like on NAMI, I will personally return your phone call. Just give it a call at 316-686-1373. Again, it's David Peterson with NAMI Wichita, 316-686-1373.
Well, so moving on, and we have a little bit more time before we take our break, and I don't know whether you can get this in time or not.
I'll try.
But help our listeners understand that every person with a mental health condition can hope for a brighter future.
They definitely can, 100%. The field is not stagnant, it is moving forward. You are not defined by your disease. There are support systems out there for you like NAMI. There's Calm Care Crisis. There are lots of there are lots of systems that you can utilize. There is hope for you in the future. We are going to remove this stigma.
That is awesome. And we are working towards that. This is Our Own Voice on KSUN Community Radio. We are talking with Dr. Lisa Harding. We are going to take another quick break, and we will be right back and learn more about the stigma as well as mental illness and other things.
Yes.
Welcome back to Our Own Voice, a partnership in mental health awareness in cooperation with NAMI Wichita and KSUN Community Radio. NAMI is a National Alliance on Mental Illness. And Lisa, during our break, we were talking about all sorts of things, and one of the things that we were talking about is you're going to be a panelist
Yes, I am.
at a certain event coming up September 21st and 22nd.
That is correct. I will be a panelist on Taking It to the Next Level. It is hosted by Tabernacle Bible Church with First Lady Annie Montgomery and her husband, Pastor Montgomery. And it's 2 sections. It's Friday and Saturday. The tickets are only $10, and it's opened to the public. We're doing a screening of the movie Call Me Crazy, which has like 5 mini stories in it. And so I'm one of the panelists on there, ready to answer questions that the public may have.
Okay. Well, speaking of that, and the fact that people experience all sorts of things, what are some things that we can, as lay people, do to help people that we are concerned about? Having them get therapy, having them go in for evaluations. What are some things that we do?
I think the first thing, and I get this question a lot, especially from family members that are trying to get their loved one into therapy. Most people use the word, it's a battle, it's hell, it's so hard, they don't want to listen. Finding common ground. I think as human beings, we've forgotten that concept. Find the thing you have in common with them. If it's your son, invite him to help you pack up your garage. And this happens with everybody, just not people with mental illness. If you antagonize somebody, it's so hard to have a conversation with them. Of course, if you think they're a danger to themselves or others, the first person you're calling is 911 or you're getting them to the emergency room. But short of that, any conversation of encouragement is so much more uplifting than a conversation of guilt and of more stigma. You know, if you look to your loved one and say, hey, you're sick, let's go to the doctor. Or as opposed to a conversation saying, hey, I love you. I am so concerned about you. Can we do this together? It is so different, the tone with which you take. You know, I think once you start there, anybody from a position of love can move forward. And I think that's the best advice that I always give.
And I like what you say there, can we do this together?
Yes.
A lot of times, I know in my own past, that it was me going alone to get the counseling or the therapy or something. And I cherished the moment when I had family members who came with me, and I was able to deal with it together with them.
That is beautiful. You know, in psychiatry, we follow what is called the biopsychosocial model. And the psychosocial part of it, a lot of people forget because we have to bring in your support system. You are a person that is involved in the community. You are a contributing member of society, and so we sometimes forget that. And that's all we do. We pull in the support. So if you have that conversation in a positive way, it can go miles.
Okay. Before I forget, I want to add that anything that you have questions about for NAMI, if you want to know more about NAMI, you can call the number 316-686-1373. That's 316-686-1373. You can also find us online at NAMIWichita.org, all mushed together as one word, NAMI Wichita. And also, our Facebook can be found at www.facebook.com, but then / NAMI Wichita KS. And that's how you can find us.
David, couldn't I simply just Google that?
Yes, you can. Then that's probably the easiest thing to do is to Google it.
So I could Google NAMI Wichita, and I'd probably see something.
NAMI Wichita. Yes.
Yeah. Now, if I Googled, I'm crazy and I need help, I'm probably not going to get anywhere, am I?
No, you're not.
Okay.
Actually, yes.
will.
Google has things built in when people start to look for things like how to commit suicide.
Oh, really?
Google has defaults built in that most times a suicide line will pop up. I've had patients say that to me. They were looking,
Really?
and on their screen a helpline popped up. Yes, that's
And
a
so
default that,
that-
Google
that-
has.
That's excellent knowledge. I didn't
That is
realize
wonderful.
that.
I did not
Yeah.
know that either.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is so great.
So in actuality, if I told somebody, you ought to just maybe Google that, I might actually be helping them in
You
this
might,
regard.
yes.
Wow. I feel so much better now.
Oh,
That is excellent, though. Good information.
Yes.
Yes.
So using your computer and Googling, which did not enter the English language until last year or the year before as an actual word
As an
in the
actual
dictionary.
word? Google
yeah.
it?
Oh, yeah.
Googling.
Yes, googly.
Yeah.
That's what I say.
Lisa, it was so
Yes.
good to have you here.
oh,
Yeah,
thank you
Lisa.
for
Yes, thank
having
you.
me.
Great. It's great.
Yeah, just call
Yes.
and I will come.
Yes. We'll
Well-
have coffee next time.
Yes.
Sounds great. So thank you for joining us for Our Own Voice on KSUN Community Radio. Thank you, Lisa Harding, for taking and talking with us about mental illness.
And it's a wrap.